Hello and welcome to All Things Foster, a place for coffee, connection, and community. This episode is sponsored by Impact Laser Therapy and Wellness, where your pain is our problem. Whether you're dealing with chronic pain or a recent injury, Impact offers non-invasive regenerative therapies to help your body heal naturally. We also guide our patients in lifestyle changes to prevent injury and reduce long-term pain. Are you injured? Call Impact. Visit Impact Laser Therapy and Wellness and take the first steps toward living pain-free. Check them out at www.impactamarillo.com or call them at 806-646-6437. And again, guys, a lot of the folks that I have on as sponsors, it's because I've used them in the past, and I've had some hip problems, and I've had Jess and Cassie laser, and it just really helps. Have you?
I haven't yet.
Yeah, you should probably check that out. Anyways, so grab your coffee and join us as we talk with Bob Talley. Thank you so much for being here today. So brief overview: Bob and his wife fostered and adopted their daughter 3 years ago. And I remember taking a placement package to you guys, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit.
Yeah, for
Sound
sure.
Good?
Absolutely.
So Bob, go back to kind of the beginning. Where did the decision to foster enter in? Because you have kids, bio kids, right?
Yeah. So we've my wife we've been married for be 19 years this year. And we've got 3 boys, 13, 11, and 7. And we really, the decision for us to foster really goes back to, not long after we've been married, or we got married, and we went on a mission trip to Nicaragua with our church. And my mom actually kind of still jokes about it. Like she picked us up at the airport when we came back from Nicaragua, and she almost picked up a car seat on the way because she was convinced we were going to bring this, a little Nicaraguan baby back with us. So it's something that's been on my wife's heart for a very long time.
Right.
And then for me, it was a little bit slower. It was something that, always kind of seemed, we would talk about it, but it always kind of seemed like, oh, that's way off, in the distance. And then when it got here, it was like, oh, this is now a conversation we're going to have. Yeah. And honestly, I was a little bit slower just because we had our 3 boys and we'd had a couple of miscarriages along the way. And even our youngest son's his name is Cord, as in like a power chord, because to have a chord, you have to have 3 notes. And we felt like with our 3 boys, we had our 3 notes. Yeah. But we did feel like we were done having our own kids, but then just the desire to foster was there. And for me, kind of what helped push me over the line a little bit was 2 things. I was in a Bible study at the time that met on Saturday mornings, and there was a pastor at our church that was leading it, and he was talking about how at the crucifixion, the term that Jesus used when he says "it is finished" was actually a legal term, and it was for adoption in Hebrew culture.
Really?
And so it was basically him saying this adoption of the Gentiles into the children of God, the family of God, it is with this act, it is finished.
Oh, wow.
And so it was basically Jesus declaring that our adoption into his family was complete.
Wow.
And so that kind of messed with me, that was, that put a whole new spin on it for me. The other thing that happened is, I work in an IT company here in town called RunBiz, and we do outsource IT for a lot of companies across the Panhandle, and we're very blessed to do IT for a lot of nonprofits, one of which being the Amarillo Children's Home.
Oh, okay.
And so I've worked with ACH for, probably 6 years now, in various capacities, and have gotten to know John Forbes over there and Diane Hill. They've got just a great team over there. And during COVID, they always have their annual fundraiser, and during COVID, things were a little bit different.
Yeah.
And so they had it in the homes. They had smaller groups come in, so it wasn't a large group. It was smaller groups come in, actually tour the homes, watch a video. Everything was, everybody was masked up and all that stuff. But you actually got to be in the homes and kind of see how the kids lived and how the house parents lived and all that stuff. And I remember it, just some of the stories that they told, excuse me, just really impacted me. And that was the moment where it was like, okay, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so we got plugged in. We knew some folks over at A World for Children, got plugged in with those guys and started the process of getting certified and doing all the classes and all those things. And so it took about a year for us to kind of go through that process.
Yeah, it's
and it was still, so that was in 2021 when we started that process. And so, there was still a lot of things that they were doing remote. So a lot of the classes were over Zoom, and it was just an interesting process because in a way they were still trying to figure out how to do all this over Zoom.
Absolutely.
And so there were a few hiccups and bumps along the way, but we finally got certified in January of 2022.
Okay.
Yep.
So what was the process like? Was it a pain in the neck? Was it, oh my God, I'm pulling my hair out? Was it easy? Was it, what was the process getting licensed like?
At points, it was all three.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't have any hair to pull out, but yeah, like I said, they were still trying to figure out a lot of just logistics with doing things on Zoom. And you've got, caseworkers and staff at these various agencies that were still not used to having to do all that. They're not IT guys.
Yeah, everybody was going through that. I mean, everybody was going through that. But yeah, these, especially like the smaller nonprofits that, I mean, that's a challenge. It's not like they have a huge IT department to get help with. So.
Well, and then you've got the nonprofits facilitating these classes, or St. Francis, whoever it was. But then you've also got 20 or so folks joining these these classes remotely, and they're having internet issues. They're forgetting to mute. You're seeing just a lot of
standing up in
fans.
their pajama pants.
Yeah.
I do have shorts on, by the way. I'm not wearing pajama pants.
So there was a little bit of that, just kind of iterating through that and trying to figure it out. There were, I'll say, and I think probably a lot of folks would say this, like I think A World for Children or Bear Foundation or whatever local agency you go through, they were fantastic. We loved working with them. St. Francis is a little bit different story. They unfortunately I think have a lot of turnover. I think we had 6 different caseworkers in the 2 years that we were fostering Annie, and so that was a little challenging because it was kind of like we would kind of get used to one person, and then it's like, well, they would switch. They would either leave because it's. I mean, I can't imagine doing that work.
Oh, I'm telling you.
You couldn't. I wouldn't make it.
I
wouldn't make the cut. So they either leave or they get promoted.
Yeah. And
so I think we had 2 case managers that got promoted, and then the rest would kind of do it for a little bit and then try other things. And so, and at one point they were so short staffed in the Amarillo office that we had somebody, actually 2 different times, we had somebody from Pampa, from the Pampa office that would drive in and do visits and all that stuff. So you've got the reality where you're doing these classes on Zoom, doing everything remote. And then you've got high turnover with St. Francis and just kind of the revolving door of caseworkers. So both those things were kind of challenging.
Yeah, sure.
And then, on top of that, it was, like I said, it was far enough removed from COVID that there wasn't a whole lot of, there were still a few restrictions that we had to handle, but then also just trying to keep our home within compliance with having 3 kids at the time that were, they were 10, 9, and 4 at the time. And so, keeping medicine locked up. Had to keep reminding them that, once they got their allergy medicine or whatever, they had to put, had to lock it back, put it back in the cabinet, lock it back, all that stuff. And so, so there were definitely some challenges. And the other thing I'll say too is that I'm very grateful. Annie had a court-appointed attorney that worked with her, and she did a great job advocating for what was best for Annie.
Right.
Because no story of a kid in foster care is simple or easy. there's always complexity. There's always, in our case, there were 4 other siblings that were in different homes down by Houston. And so, and we got her when she was 3 months old. And so we were the only family that really she'd ever known.
Yeah.
And so, at various points they were trying to reunify with siblings, and we're like, that's great. I mean, they, in a perfect world, they should be with their siblings.
Absolutely.
But the only siblings that she knows are our kids.
Right.
The only family that she knows is our family. And so, again, her attorney did a great job just advocating for what was actually best for her.
Yeah.
To be ripped from the only family that she'd known after being ripped from her mom, like that's, even at 3 months old, that's traumatic.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's, they used to say, they're just a baby. They don't remember anything. And we talked last week with Robin, and she recommended, and it's a book that I continue to, it's on my list, sticky noted on my computer, but it's called The Body Keeps Score. And it talks about the traumas that your body has in you that you just you're just not even aware that's there. So, I make the correlation, like, if you were dropped in the middle of the Amazon jungle naked, that's about what it's like when you're 3 months old and the only person that you've known is mom, even though mom has difficulties, but that's that's your normal.
Yeah.
And so the tastes are different, the smells are different, the skin tone everything is foreign.
Yeah.
And that's traumatic. I mean, and just because at 5 they can't point back to a day when she was wearing this outfit or whatever, she can't articulate that.
Right.
It's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely there.
Yeah.
And we're learning so much more about that now. Just because they're little doesn't mean that they're a blank slate.
Right.
Yeah. There's stuff that goes on in utero that I mean, we're just now sort of starting to understand that makes a huge impact. Just having a stressful pregnancy.
Yeah.
To full marriage, whatever. And then there's, let's say dad loses his job in the middle of the pregnancy. Mom has a whole bunch of stress and then introduces stress hormones to the kiddo and all the things. So just because they're infants doesn't mean that they're a blank slate.
Right.
So tell us about the day. Tell
Man.
us about the day when she came.
Man, it was going to be a normal day. I mean, I don't remember a lot leading up to that day just because it was pretty routine. We got the kids to school. I went to work, and we'd had a couple of calls. So we got our certification in January of 2022. D-Day was May 4th, 2022, when we got her Star Wars Day, as several folks in my office like to remind me. And so I mean, we had just normal day. We got ready for school. And I was going to say we'd had a couple of calls before, but because of our situation with our bio kids and all that, we wanted to kind of keep we were shooting for a younger placement, younger child, which is just a weird thing in and of itself. Like when they ask you kind of what your preferences are, it's like this isn't vending
shopping
machine.
here.
This is a child.
Yeah,
I feel weird about this, but anyway. So we'd gotten a few calls for placements, but they were all out of the Plainview area. And, it's, I mean, I'm thankful that in the matter of time it took my wife and I to sync up on whether or not we were going to say yes or no. And a couple of them we said yes. But by the time we had made that decision in maybe 3 or 4 minutes, somebody else from the Plainview area had stepped up. And so grateful for that, that the kids got to stay, those kids got to stay in their areas. But with Annie, we got the call that afternoon and our company was actually having an outing that night. We were all going to go to a Sod Poodles game.
right.
And so I had, I can still remember sitting at my desk when my wife called, and I had my Sod Poodles ticket sitting just on my desk right above my keyboard. And I'm a big baseball fan, so I'd kind of been, looking forward to that. And we got the call, and we had one of the stipulations that we had said was that we didn't prefer an emergency placement, just because typically you don't know what the permanency of that is going to be.
Right.
And we, had some friends that had gone through this process before and had kids placed with them, and then, kind of in and out or with them for 6 months, then taken away. And while we felt called to foster, we didn't necessarily want to do that to our kids.
Yeah,
because they, they proved this with Annie. They attached quickly.
No doubt.
So anyway, we got this call for an emergency placement, and it was this little girl that had been taken away from her mom. And at the time, there was very little that we knew about her.
Yeah.
And kind of as the process went on, we learned more and more, obviously. But we took a few minutes, and Beth kind of told me what we did know, and we prayed about it. It felt like it was a yes, like we needed to say yes to this little girl. And so she called World for Children back, let them know that we were good to go, and felt kind of surreal. I was still sitting at my desk. I think we got the call maybe around 3:30 or 4 that afternoon. So I know I sat at my desk till 5, but I couldn't tell you what I did.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we, I went home. We got all the kids and kind of gathered them up, told them what was going to happen, and then we thought, let's go get some dinner real quick. We'll go, celebrate what God's doing in this. We'll have another kind of our last meal as a family of 5.
Yeah.
And so we went over to Blue Sky, and we're sitting there having a lovely meal. They told us that they'd be by probably 8:30 or 9 that night. And so we had sat down at Blue Sky, and we'd been there for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and got the call that said, "Hey, we're in your driveway." I'm like, okay, everybody eat your burgers real quick.
Yeah. Wrap that up.
Yep. So we went back home, and there were a couple of folks from St. Francis there, and they brought her in. I think my wife was the first one to hold her, and you could tell she was, even at 3 months old, she was taking in a lot.
Yeah.
And we don't know a lot about where she was. We know kind of roughly where she was in town, but we just knew that she had a pretty rough first 3 months.
Yeah.
And you could tell. I mean, she was pretty malnourished and very. I'll never forget this. She was very rigid. Her fists were clenched.
Yeah.
And found out later through one of the therapists that worked with her later on that and for some reason they didn't do drug testing on her whenever they got her, but the therapist said that what she was experiencing was pretty consistent with some sort of drug exposure, either in the womb or outside. But anyway, so she was just and I just remember her eyes. She still does. She has massive eyes, and she was just taking everything in. She didn't cry. She had kind of conditioned herself, because her bio mom would leave her in the apartment for hours to maybe a couple days at a time to go do whatever. And so she had conditioned herself to soothe herself in other ways. Like crying didn't do anything.
Yeah. When I cry, nobody comes, so I stop crying.
Exactly.
It's what happens. There's another book called The Connected Child. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah. So Dr. Karen Purvis that wrote it, she has since passed, but she talks about going over to an orphanage in China, and she said it was the most bizarre thing, because you'd walk in this room and there'd be 20 or 30 cribs full of babies, and it is completely silent. Just and then that's why, because they literally had bottles attached to the crib so they could roll over and suck on it.
Wow.
And then so they were changed in the morning and changed in the evening, and the rest of the day they were just there. And so within days the kids learned, if I cry, nobody comes. Yeah. And so we just stopped crying. And you have to figure out some other way to soothe yourself. So,
yeah. So she did that. And to this day, she still sucks her thumb, and she twists her hair. Like she'll suck her thumb with one hand and then twist her hair with the other one.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we got her, got to interact with her for a little bit, and then St. Francis was like, okay, well, see ya.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the day our oldest son was born.
Right.
You know, it's like we're in the hospital and he shows up, and we're in there for a couple days, and then they said, okay, you're good to go, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Where's the manual for this?
Yeah.
Now with fostering is different because we had a year's worth of manuals,
Yeah.
and, trainings and all that stuff.
Which
but,
on its face is like there's so much information coming at you.
Right.
It's impossible
Yeah.
to absorb all of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, the other thing is, like with anything, I mean, any job training or anything like that, you can have all the training in the world, but then once you get into a situation, it's like, well, I learned all this stuff, but I don't know. I can't decipher what applies here and what doesn't.
Right.
Anyway, so it was very overwhelming. We were very grateful. It's something we've been praying for a long time.
Right.
And our kids, our boys were, especially our oldest two, the 4-year-old was kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah.
I'm not the youngest anymore.
Yeah.
So he had to adjust a little bit. But our oldest two were just over the moon with her. They were, kind of arguing over who was going to get to hold her first and all that. So we've got, to this day, some of my favorite pictures that we have of my boys are the night that we got Annie.
Yeah.
And them just sitting in this green chair that we used to have and holding her and just these big grins on their faces.
Yeah.
So it was a surreal moment for sure.
Yeah.
It was great, but it was surreal.
And yeah, it's wonderfully terrifying.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that sound about?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah. What was the terracited was our word. We were terrified and excited.
I like that. Terracited.
Yep. Terracited.
So what happens next?
So we'd been there. We're just kind of, at that point, just kind of adjusting, kind of like, hey, there's this new person in our family and she's not crying. She's not really doing anything. She's just kind of staring at us like we, just in that moment, this deep appreciation that she was in our lives now. But also kind of running through the list of things like, because we were very blessed to have, obviously we had our 3 boys. So we had some essential things. We had a crib, we had a rocking chair, had toys and blankets and stuff from them. Some of them were a little beat up because they're boys, but we had some stuff.
I know.
You don't know anything about that.
I'm telling you, man. I swear to God, every day something is broken, and I'm like, oh, I can't. You guys are breaking stuff faster than I can fix it. You're killing me.
Yep. And even when they were, however old they were, like 10 and 9, that was the case then.
Oh yeah,
for sure. So we had a few things, but one thing that we hadn't really thought about because we didn't know for sure what age, child we were going to get. And so, this was in 2020, early 2022. So there was still, I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was a formula shortage. So we were looking on, Walmart.com and trying to figure out where we can find formula, and there was nothing.
Yeah.
And they told us when they brought her that there was a specific time that she needed because she was so malnourished.
Yeah.
So at that point, we're kind of freaking out, like, okay, now what? Like, kind of in our heads, we're making a list of, okay, what do we need to run to Walmart and get? And we had a few things for little girls, like maybe some dresses. One of my wife's favorite things is, I can't tell you how many bows Annie owns. So we had I think more at the time. I think we had more bows than anything else. But it was in that moment we're kind of like, okay, especially for me. I think my wife is still, just kind of in awe and really soaking in the moment. And I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm creating a list of the things that we need to go like get right now. So that was because at this point, St. Francis has already left, and we're just kind of like oohing and awing over Annie. But I'm also having all these thoughts in the back of my head, like, okay, what do we need? And that's where you came in. Yeah. So we'd been there, kind of in that moment from, not long. I think St. Francis had left. Once she showed up on our doorstep, everything else is kind of a blur. Timeline wise. But she, I think they'd left maybe 15, 20 minutes before you came. And so we and I think you'd called Beth.
I think so.
Just to see what she needed, or see what we needed. I remember Beth getting off the phone and being like, somebody's going to bring us all the things that we need. I'm like, what do you mean, like all the things that we need? Like,
right.
So she started running down the list of what y'all talked about. And I'm like, that's everything that I just had in my head. And so you guys showed up.
Yeah.
And I think you brought most of your family.
I did. Nikki was with me, and the 3 kids were there too. Yeah.
So we got to, you brought in, I want to say it was like 5 or 6 bags worth of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember yours because we went to 4 different stores trying to find the formula that she needed. And I think we ended up finding it at like CVS or something like that. We went to Target, we went to Walmart, we went to 3 or 4 different places until we finally found the right one. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys showed up, and it was just, it was just, I can't tell you how much peace it brought me.
Yeah.
All of us, but especially, like I said, I was the one in my head running down the list of what we didn't have, and wanting to be. Honestly, I think now that I look back on it, I'm wanting to be a good dad.
Yeah.
To this little girl.
Yeah.
To our foster daughter.
Yep.
And not feeling equipped to do that in that moment. So when you guys showed up, it was just like, okay, this is going to be okay. God's got us. So yeah, it was, you guys had formula, diapers, wipes, pajamas, some clothes, some blankets, little toy. She's still, that I think it was a stuffed bunny rabbit. It's still in her crib. Yeah. She's in a big girl bed now.
Yeah, sure.
It's still in her bed. The blanket that you brought is still in her room over her chair. She's grown out of everything else, thankfully. But it was just, it was so cool to see you show up with everything that we needed.
That's cool.
You were a godsend for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. It's as much a blessing to us as it is, because we started this whole thing because the same type of thing happened to us, right? We had these 3 kids show up with the clothes on their back, not even shoes, and so these friends and family and church, they just started bringing us this stuff, and it was like, I remember like thinking, and they had come at 8, 9 o'clock at night, and where are they gonna sleep? What are they gonna wear? And all the things, and so we remember the blessing it was for some folks to show up for us, and because the first time we got them, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we were really kind of on our own. We felt like the whole year that we had them, and then the second go around, it was like this is what the community should be doing, because it's not just clothes, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a blanket.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the feedback that I get from foster families is in that moment, we feel seen, we feel valued. This kid has value, and supported. Because, talk about the next 3 years. Were there times when you felt like nobody understands what in the world we're going through?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There were times where we didn't. When we got into it, I don't think we fully knew, what we were getting into, and she's absolutely worth it. But yeah, over the next 3 years, it was especially during when we were fostering to adopt her. There were some challenging times, and I think, there's. Well, I'll say this. I think everyone is called to help foster families, right? It's y'all's verse.
Yeah.
This is 27. This is true religion, to take care of widows and orphans. Yeah. I think everyone is called to that.
Yeah.
Now, is everyone called to foster or foster to adopt? I don't think so.
No.
But everyone is called to help out somehow.
Everybody can do something. Bring us an outfit, donate $10 a month or something like that. We can all be a CASA. Did Annie have a CASA?
She didn't. There was such a shortage that we didn't have.
Man,
but like I said, her court appointed attorney was fantastic, and I think she is that is the way that she is called. To take care of take care of orphans. And then honestly, one of the biggest things for us was we had some family go through the classes so that they could babysit for us and things like that. You have to, even to babysit foster kids, you have to go through some certifications, and first aid training, and all these things. And so we had some family members that did that. But one of the biggest things that was helpful was respite care.
Yeah.
Because even though they go through there's a level of classes that they go through to be able to watch her during the day. But if she wants to stay overnight somewhere, that's a whole different animal
thing.
That's a whole nother layer.
Almost as much as getting licensed.
It really is.
It is.
It really is. And so, there were some times where my wife and I just needed to get out of town, and
because it's an emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely is. I mean, that's what I tell everybody is you've got the ups and downs of just the process itself. Just learning more about her backstory and the trauma there and the things that she was pulled from and all that. But then you've also got, I tell everybody it's a broken system because it shouldn't need to exist. The foster system should not need to exist, but I'm thankful that it does.
Yeah.
Because we live in a fallen world and it's
people are people. And they make mistakes.
People are people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've got a broken system that is also, I don't know exactly when they began the privatization of CPS, but you've got in Texas, I forget how many different agencies there are that have kind of taken over the role of what Child Protective Services used to be. But for our area, it's St. Francis. There's another one for the Houston area. And so there was, I mentioned earlier that she had some siblings in the Houston area.
Yeah.
That 3 that were with a foster mom down there, and then 1 that was with a biological, I think a paternal grandparent. But so then you've got Amarillo trying to talk to Houston, and then turnover in both agencies. And at one point, her file was on a flash drive, and they lost the flash drive.
Oh my God!
Emotional roller coaster is an understatement.
Yeah,
and that's everybody's story.
Yeah,
I feel like in a lot of ways we were pretty blessed. I mean, she was never actually taken from our home. They tried a couple of times, and fortunately, my wife was talking to our St. Francis representative and was able to kind of change their mind on that a little bit. And then again, her attorney did a great job of really. Pushing for what was best for her. And so between all of that, it was an emotional roller coaster. And so, there were a couple of times where we just, in order to preserve our sanity and maybe our marriage, we needed to just get some time away.
You really do.
Just for ourselves. You know,
regular married folks with quote unquote regular kids need a break.
Oh yeah.
That every time they fart just about, you got to fill out a form, right? I mean, goodness gracious.
You're not wrong.
Golly.
You're not wrong.
I mean, every time there's a scraped knee or, got to take an allergy pill or whatever, there's a form, and all the things. So, it is an exhausting journey. And having that, and like you're saying, different ways that different people can serve, like, providing respite is a huge thing.
Well, and that was a very long story to say that we were incredibly grateful for the people that stepped up that weren't planning to foster, they weren't planning to adopt. They just recognized the need for just a place for foster kids to stay overnight. And we didn't take 4 or 5 day long trips. It was it was a quick trip to Albuquerque or Oklahoma City, or just getting out of town for 24 hours to reconnect as a couple, but then also kind of talk through what the next steps were going to be like, and what praying through what our life was going to be like for the next however many months. We didn't really know. So just to get on the same page, and so we're very grateful for those families that stepped up to do that.
Because those are few. There's just not enough of them, and it does. It's an important service and things like that. So what about the last 3 years, right? I was going to ask you the God Wink. Tell us about the God Wink. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a moment. And again, the night that we got her was kind of a blur. So I don't remember exactly when. It was after you guys had left. I think we'd gotten her kind of settled in her room, and we were kind of putting away all the stuff that y'all brought over. And, we were just talking about how grateful we were. And it's a phrase that we've used kind of throughout our marriage that, if we were unsure about something, and kind of stepped out in faith and did it anyway, there've been several times where the Lord would, in his goodness, kind of give us a little confirmation, and so my wife calls them a God wink. And so we're kind of packing away all the things that you guys have brought over. And I don't remember how she phrased it, but it was something like this was a God wink.
Yeah.
This is just you guys showing up and taking care of us in that way was just a little way of the Lord to say, hey, I got you. Yeah. You're going to be okay. This is the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you guys were our God wink.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. So it's 3, you've had her coming up on 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Like in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. A couple weeks away.
Yeah.
So we got her when she was 3 months old. She just turned 3 in January. And, which was interesting too, because for a while we didn't know when her birthday was, because she had various dates on various pieces of paper. So, but yeah, she just turned 3, and coming up on 3 years of having her in our home, and we got to adopt her officially last April.
Okay.
So we, got to do that. So very grateful, and grateful that she's a Talley now, and when you come to my house, our older boys still just think she hung the moon, but she and our youngest son are best buds. Oh, like they, I mentioned earlier. At first, he was a little apprehensive. Yeah. Just because he was the baby, and now, when he's 4 years old and you're not the baby anymore, that's tough to handle. Yeah. But they are best friends. That's great. And it's so funny because she will just do whatever he does, she's going to do. So we're really working on him to stop making fart noises and stuff like that, because she's going to be a tomboy. She absolutely is. I think she's already stronger than all of them. She's very strong. But anyway, yeah. So we got to adopt her last year, and since then it's just been. Obviously not having to. Because once you go through all the certifications and the trainings and stuff, that doesn't mean you stop. No. As long as your home is open, you have more trainings to do and everything like that. So just because the process with her was so kind of the emotional roller coaster that you mentioned, we paused any new placements or anything like that. We just want to now just focus on her. And she still had some kind of residual health issues that we had to work through. She had some physical therapy for a while. Like I said, when we got her muscles were just so tight. Yeah. Just from either self-soothing or clenching or whatever it was, just all the stress from being by yourself at 3 months old. So she had some of that. She had, like I said, the therapist thought there was probably some drug exposure at some point, and because she just didn't eat, and so the muscles in her mouth had not developed in the way that they needed to be able to eat. So she had to have eating therapy. Oh wow! Which I didn't know was a thing. I didn't either. When I found out that she was going to have that, I was kind of shocked. Thought that was involuntary. Right? Yeah. So it's just amazing the things that as a quote unquote normal kid, you don't ever think about that. So that was, during the first, that was probably within the first year that we had her, that she had pretty intensive therapy. It was about 4 or 5 times a month. Wow. But she's doing great now. She still, I think just because she was tensing her muscles so much, she is incredibly strong. Right. In more ways than one, but she, she can hang with her brothers on just about anything. She kind of bounces around everywhere, which is it's fun to look back and see the pictures that we took the night that we got her, and she just even at 3 months old, she just kind of looked sad. Yeah. And to see her kind of jumping around the house and playing with her brothers and all that, we just feel very blessed that she was able to make the turnaround that she did. We're thankful for the therapists, and she's been at Head Start with Region 16, and they've done great things with her, and so she is just a different kid than she was when she came into our house.
Wow. I just thought about it. What was the crazy, weirdest thing you had to do during all the licensing process?
I like to consider myself a pretty practical person, and so I would say one of the weirder things was double locking all of the kind of the dangerous things, which I get, but double locking the medicine, like I get that. Honestly, that's probably something we should do anyway, just to make sure our own kids don't get into something they shouldn't. But I remember I had a coworker that had gone through the process of fostering to adopt, and he just said, "Man, get ready to lock your guns up." And I'm a red-blooded Texan, like most of us, and so I've got a few shotguns and a couple of pistols and maybe a rifle, but I just remember thinking, well, how am I going to protect my family if somebody comes in here?
Right.
Like, this seems counterproductive.
Yeah.
So that was one of them. That was one of the ones that I thought, that seems odd.
Yeah.
Because I keep everything locked up anyway, but having to double lock it, like, this seems counterproductive. But I guess if somebody comes in, I'll just beat them with the gun case. I don't know. So there's that. I think probably one thing that I don't know that I was prepared for was because her parents are originally from Somalia, and she was obviously born in Texas, but we don't really know where. We think that because mom had already had 4 kids taken away, we think that she was maybe born at home. There's no record of her birth anywhere. We were able to get a birth certificate later, but it took some digging to figure out when and where and all that. So so with her obviously having being her parents being from Somalia, and I mean, she looks different than we do. Which I was really proud of my kids, because they're like, oh, she's got different skin. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then it was just
on you go.
Yeah. For other people in our lives, even some family members, it was a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Because especially for, I think, an older generation, there were some, just some things that were normal for them growing up, and even comments that they would make seemed, they just, it was phrases that they'd used their whole lives. And so hearing some things from family members and, people from other areas other things that we were involved in, church or groups or work or whatever, there were some interesting things said, I think, just out of very well-meaning, but maybe also just a little unaware.
That's for sure.
And so that was something I wasn't quite prepared for. But it also led to some beautiful stories too. We had some family members that were like, I didn't realize that I maybe had a little kind of racist mindsets until she came along, and she's kind of helped break that off and help me realize that I had some of that I needed to let go. So it was interesting, but it led to some beautiful things. Yeah.
I remember when we had the boys the first time, and they were 2 and 4, and I had to make a drawing of the house and make a map of an evacuation plan and hang it down at where he could see it. And it's like, he's 2.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know that this box is the house and the red arrows mean to go this way. It's like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Is this Mario Brothers, or is this? Oh wait, that's our house. Okay.
Gosh dang.
Well, if your drawing skills are anything like mine, you wouldn't be able to make it out anyway.
Okay, so I just had to use paint, like on the computer, just
nice.
made a rectangle.
There you go. You were smarter than I was.
It's just like whatever.
That's awesome.
Oh man. So are there? We talked about the encouragements and supports that have helped you. What are there anything that you were like, man, I wish we had this, or would have this now? Like, are there support mechanisms that you needed that weren't there, or that you need now that you aren't aware of, or anything like that?
You know, I think we were and are very, very blessed in that we have part of our journey that I didn't mention was that we had multiple friends and even family that had foster to adopted before us.
Yeah.
So my brother-in-law and his wife, they foster to adopt 3 girls. We've got some really good friends that have 3. Even after their girls, they had 3 bio kids of their own that were in high school and college, and they adopted 3 little boys that are close to our kids' age. And so we had a good, at least a good frame of reference. You know, it's every story is different, everybody's experience is different, but they were able to share some insights from their journeys, and we got to see kind of their perspective on some things. So there were a few cases where it definitely helped having that going into a situation with St. Francis or whatever the case may be. The other thing is we're very blessed with family in town. So both my parents are in town. In fact, they live 7 doors down from us.
Oh, wow.
My brother-in-law and his wife actually live across the street. And then my wife's family, they're all in town. And so, there was just, we were very blessed from the beginning to have a lot of love for our little girl.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's story is not like that. So we really are very humbled and very blessed that we had such a good support system. That being said, there were a few things that would come up, because our agency, A World for Children, would have, periodic events. I remember one where we just went to a park and just played at a park. But it was a good time to interact with other foster families and kind of hear their stories, hear what they were doing, how are they having these conversations with their kids, and between their bio kids and their adopted kids, how are they having conversations around that process with their kids and with their family. In fact, I remember it was the first time I met John Forbes, who's now the executive director at Amarillo Children's Home. We were just pushing our kids on a swing, and we got to meet him and kind of hear some of their story, and it was just it was the encouragement that I didn't know that I needed at the time. Yeah, it was especially for us. It was a good. It helped my perspective a lot because we were on the emotional roller coaster. There were a couple of times where we felt like we were at the bottom. Right. We had just taken this plunge and we were at the bottom of this thing, and I don't know if we're going to make it out. But then you hear other stories from other foster families, and it's like, oh, okay, no, we're like she hasn't actually been pulled from our home yet. Bio parents they're not fighting for custody. They're not. We're actually more fortunate than we think we are. Yeah. Because, like I said, that's not everybody's story. So it was very encouraging for us to meet with some of these other foster families and kind of hear what was going on with them, hearing their success stories, hearing the things that were going well, the adoptions they were getting to have, and the breakthroughs they were having with their foster kids, and then also just kind of being there with them in the heartache and all that. So that was, like I said, that was the encouragement that I didn't know that I needed. And then also, Amarillo Angels does a lot for foster families, and not just the foster kids, but everybody that's in your family. Yeah. And so I remember being invited to an event they were having at it was I think Air U, but all the kids were invited. Even our bio kids, and we showed up, and they had pizza, and they had at least for my boys, way too much Dr. Pepper, and got to go play for a couple hours.
Yeah, sure.
And that was huge.
Yeah.
And it's one of our kids still talk about it. And Annie at the time was maybe, I don't even know if she was 2 yet.
Yeah.
When that happened. Yeah. I think she would be maybe between 1 and 2 when we got to go do that. And so it's something that she'll never remember, but the rest of us have been impacted by it.
Yeah. That's so a place for coffee, connection, right?
Yeah.
Because I said this in the intro episode, we do better in community, in connecting with other folks that have a similar story.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, somebody from Nigeria is not going to connect very well with somebody from, Laos. I mean, they just have to, not that they can't or anything like that, but you have two totally different experiences. And so it's difficult to relate.
Yeah.
But when you put folks together that have a similar story, those are what we need. And so, I mean, that's a big part of the reason for this podcast is, we're all busy, we're all doing the things and stuff like that. And sometimes it's hard to connect in person. Obviously connecting in person is great, but hopefully being able to get on here and listen to some stories and connect that way as well.
Yeah.
And so, connection is just vital. In whatever path you're walking. I mean, it could be, it could be two people going to school together, or whatever.
Yeah.
But walking that out, is great. And Serena's going to be on the podcast here in a couple weeks from
nice.
From Emerald Angels.
Good.
So
that's awesome.
So if someone was listening and was thinking about fostering, what do you tell them? What would you tell them?
I think I would say it's worth it, and get ready for the roller coaster.
Yeah.
I think, like I said earlier, I think everyone is called to help foster kids in some capacity. I don't think everyone is called to foster.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling called to actually foster, whether it's, we had some friends that just fostered. They didn't want to foster to adopt. They already had their own kids, but they recognized the need for kids to go until they could get placed or until, mom could get healthy or whatever it may be. Yeah. So whether you feel like you're called to foster or foster to adopt, man, if you feel that, then, take a step of faith and go for it, because there's a definite need, right? I mean, I forget what the latest stat is on how many kids just in the Panhandle are foster kids or in foster homes. But it's
about
a definite need.
600 come into care in the 26 counties.
Wow.
A year. About
okay.
600.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was less than that, so I'm glad you had the better numbers than I did. Yeah. So there's a definite need for sure. I think when I say it's worth it, I mean she is the light of our world. I mean, she can light up a room. I mentioned her eyes earlier. She just has these. The night that we got her, at one point she got up. She wasn't crying, but she was kind of fussy. It was about 4 a.m. So I got up with her and just took her downstairs, and we sat on the couch. And I just remember, I think I just stared at her eyes for until 6 a.m. And she still has that. Yeah. So I mean, she can light up a room. She is the life of the party. And so it's really cool to see what God did in her.
Yeah.
So it's worth it just for her.
Yeah.
She is absolutely worth it, but it's also worth it just to see what it's done in our kids and in myself and my wife and in our marriage and our family.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sacrifice for the bio kids too. Right?
It is.
I mean, it is. It's a whole family thing.
Yeah, it is. And and we had some conversations with them, with our bio kids, throughout the process of like, hey, this could happen. At one point, they were St. Francis was going to come take her on Halloween night, and we all had costumes picked out, and it was, we had that conversation with our kids, like, hey, they might come get her tonight, and fortunately that didn't happen, but. I mean, even just the thought of her not being in our home crushed them.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, seeing how much they love her and seeing how much they have just invested in her as a person, and it's made a big impact on them. I think I told you this last week, but our oldest is actually running. He made it. He made.
Good.
He was running for student council at his school, and part of his. He had to write a little essay kind of talking about why he wanted to be in student council, and they have to pick a nonprofit to want to support and kind of as their kind of
volunteering.
Yeah, kind of some way to volunteer and give back. And he picked Panhandle Orphan Care Network. Yeah. He came to me. He was like, "Hey, Dad, what was the name of that guy that you know that?" And I've told him about Max a lot. So he's like, the guy with the cool dog. And they showed up the night that we got Annie and gave us all the stuff. And I was like, oh, that's Matt with Panhandle Orphan Care Network. He's like, oh, yeah, I want to pick them.
That's awesome.
And so anyways, so even just, it's worth it, not just for, getting Annie out of a situation that she didn't need to be in. It's worth it to see the impact that it has on, like for him to write that as part of his essay. That was 3 years ago. It made a huge impact on him as a 10-year-old then. So it's worth it. And I would say get ready, because I don't think, even if you've got all the support in the world and, go through all the classes and have friends that have done it before, and now have a podcast where they can, get some other perspective and kind of some insight. No story is the same, and so you never know. You never know what the situation is going to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, more than anything, I think having support and having connection is vital. But we would not have made it through if we hadn't been relying on the Lord through the process.
Absolutely.
It was, I can't tell you how many prayers were prayed and how many just times that we've spent literally on our face asking the Lord that we would get to keep her.
Yeah.
Or asking him to intervene in a courtroom that we couldn't be in. And so it was that was the main thing that got us through.
Yeah.
Having family and having friends and a support system were great.
They're great. Yeah. But relying on the Lord is the,
yeah. I can't imagine going through this process without him.
Yeah. The reason we picked James 1:27 as our guiding verse, when we got the boys the first time, we were broke. Oh my gosh, we were broke. We were living in this 1,200 square foot house, 2 teenage daughters, and then we got these 2 baby boys. I was working 2 full-time jobs. I was substituting every day at the school district.
Wow.
And then I waited tables at Cheddar's at night, worked a double on Saturday, and then on Sunday I led worship for a little church service, and then did a youth program in the afternoon. And so we were just tapped. And then we just get this call, and it's like, hey, will you take these kids? And we said yes. And I'm a couple days later, I'm like praying. I'm like, God, I need you to make this abundantly clear that this is what you're calling us to do, because I don't know how I'm going to feed these kids, let alone anything else.
Right.
And I was doing a reading plan, and I didn't go looking. James was the next book on my list, and I've read it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And I opened it up, and I just start reading, and I get down to the word, care for widows and orphans. This is true religion. And I was like, okay, you're calling me to do this. You're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to make it work. Yeah. And he did. But yeah, you have to have that. You have to have that reliance on the Lord. Yeah. Because it's the hardest thing we've ever done. Yeah. Hands down. It's probably the longest thing we've ever done too. It's been 11 years. but going through, especially during that early part, it's hard, and you definitely have to have a good support structure and faith in the Lord for sure. So, what would you say to the community at large to help understand the needs of foster parents?
I think before we went on this journey ourselves, fostering was something that I knew it was out there. I knew it was necessary. I thought that if you're like, it's either you foster or you don't.
Right.
It was pretty black and white for me, and it was pretty extreme. And the more that we've gotten into it, the more I've seen the Lord use people, like I said, providing respite care or volunteering at, for Amarillo Angels, or being a social worker for an adoption agency or a foster agency. There's a lot of ways to do this. It's not just you foster or you don't. Yeah. And so I think, there's probably a lot of ways you can do this. I mean, like I said, we went through A World for Children. I know there are other great organizations out there. Amarillo Angels is fantastic. I know there are other organizations that support foster families, in like you guys and other groups that kind of provide support along the way. Yeah. But I don't know, it's kind of a cliche saying, but it really does take a village to raise your own kids, let alone foster kids. Yeah. And so I think, just see if you see, maybe even Google, what organizations you can get involved with. If you've got time to give that. If you've got money to give that. If you've got space to give as a respite provider, or even as a kind of a short-term placement, give that. I think that for me, that was the biggest realization, was we had something to give. Yeah. And in some cases it was our hearts. And in some cases they were kind of ripped out of our chests and then put back. But but I think everybody's got something to give. And I think maybe I think for a lot of folks, because it was this way for me, there feels like a barrier to entry, where it's like, I don't feel equipped to foster. I don't know that. I mean, most days I don't feel equipped to parent my own kids, let alone someone else's. But I think if we could lower the barrier to entry, just maybe recognize for folks that there are ways to help out where you don't have to, there are other ways to help besides just fostering. Yeah. And I say just fostering. I actually hate the word just in that case, but besides fostering, there are other ways to help out. And so I would say find ways to get involved, with you guys or other agencies in the area. I know there's a lot of need.
Yeah, for sure. There, for sure. Well, thank you. That's good. Let's see. Do you have a story of hope or something that would speak to someone who is feeling overwhelmed right now?
Oh man, yeah. I wish I could just put up a slideshow of Annie. She is our story of hope. I think just seeing, honestly, like when today I went home for lunch, and normally my mother-in-law picks her up from school and then brings her home. And so I went a little bit later than normal, and so I was there when she got home. And she picked her up actually and took her to the doctor because she wasn't feeling well. She's got an ear infection today. So even though she's not feeling good, she's got an ear infection in one ear. She walked in the door and saw me when she wasn't expecting to see me, and just like threw up her hands like, "Daddy!" Ran over to me and gave me a hug. And so, I think she's our story of hope. Yeah. She in and of herself. Yeah. Just seeing what the Lord has done in and through her. Yeah. And I think too, I mean, going back to your previous question about how people can help out. I mean, there are also the teachers at Head Start that have worked with her and helped her, and the physical therapists and the eating therapists, and just so many people that have, and even in just the short time that she's been on this earth, have helped make her who she is outside of our family. It's been inspiring to see the Lord work through all these different people that we don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's a half. Most of them we won't know. Yeah. I remember her physical therapist's face, but I couldn't tell you her name. I know that she had a huge impact on her. Some of her teachers, a little bit different story. We know their names and we see them out at restaurants sometimes. But I think just seeing the body of Christ come together around this little girl, and around us too, but mostly around her, and supporting her and giving her the things that she needs to, overcome the trauma that she experienced in the first 3 months of her life, and really help propel her into who God has created her to be.
Yeah,
that's what brings me hope.
Yeah, that is definitely hope for sure. Well, so how can listeners pray for or support families? I think we kind of talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's so much. I mean, there's, like we talked about, there's the practical needs for sure. Because there were some times, I mean, our even before we got Annie, our kids love to eat. I feel like half my paycheck goes to groceries. And then you start throwing diapers and formula and all that stuff in there. I mean, there are definitely practical needs, just provision, to pray for in that. But I think the biggest thing, though, because I mean, if this is how I feel about us, and I feel this way for other people too. If you feel called to it, kind of like your story, like you feel called to it, the Lord's going to show up, and He's going to take care of His kids.
Yeah,
she is absolutely one of His kids, and He is taking care of her in practical ways. But I think the biggest thing, I mean, like I said, it's just such an emotional roller coaster that I think just prayers for peace and for the Lord to intervene in situations where He needs to intervene. There were so many times where it looked like things were not going to work out for her to stay in our home, and the Lord just He intervened, and we had a lot of people praying for us and with us, and it was. I mean, at some point, multiple points, it was probably prayers for our sanity more than anything else. And I think strength and endurance to get through the process. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to pray for.
Yeah, one of our nightly prayers is for strength and endurance.
Yeah.
I don't pray for patience, bro, because I don't know if you've ever done that, but you're just asking for problems there.
I think there's bumper stickers and T-shirts that talk about doing that.
Yeah. So I just asked for endurance.
There you go.
So, well, listen, thank you, Bob, for coming on and sharing your story and sharing Annie with us. And I appreciate just the willingness to the heart behind just willing to bring this little girl into your home and make her yours, and then but then the encouragement and support you've provided POCN as well, it has been great. And so thank you so much for coming on and for sharing. Guys, remember to hit like and subscribe, turn on the notifications. Our episodes post every Tuesday at 10 Central Time. We want to grow this audience. We want to reach more foster families, adopted families, and the community at large. So share it on your social media platforms. Next week, we're going to have Julian Diaz on here. He's from Mission 991. And they are an organization that works with child traffickers. And so he's going to come on and share some practical things that you can do with your kids' devices to prevent them being groomed. Because, I mean, there are folks out there that will use any means possible to get access to your kids. And the reality is foster kids are far more vulnerable to to being groomed and trafficked than kiddos that are raised in a biological family. And so we're going to talk about that. And so thanks again to our episode sponsor, Impact Laser Wellness. They have some really great tools to help with some pain and stuff. So go check them out. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week.